So if you're like I was back in my winemaking days, you will have plenty of evidence that you can't be trusted around alcohol, or maybe for you it's sugar. And if that's you, then I have good news. So in this episode, I'm sharing the most likely 5 reasons you struggle with over drinking or over sugaring, and how to remove these blocks so you become one of those magical unicorns who can take it or leave it around booze, even the most delicious French champagne, or even the most delicious brownie. Okay, so welcome to Joyful Eating, episode 234. Today we're talking about the 5 reasons you don't trust yourself around alcohol. And these also apply to sugar as well. So if you're not a booze hound, but you're a sugar lover, listen on. You'll get something out of this. So before we dive in, I just wanted to share, usually I do, for those of you that are new to the podcast, usually I share at the beginning like my best bite. So something that I've eaten in the last week that's been really delicious. But today I thought I would share my most enjoyable drink. So my most enjoyable drink that I had, I was just thinking about over the last few months, what was the drink that I had that was the most satisfying and enjoyable? And it was when it was autumn, so a couple of months ago. Yeah. So I went, it was Friday afternoon, and I had my lunch down by the dam, and the boys were at school, Ocean was working, and I had a glass of wine, Nick O'Leary's. So Nick O'Leary's a local winery. Love their stuff. Where I live, it's this cool climate. So beautiful, crisp, minerally, citrusy, all the things that I love about Riesling. And I sat by the dam and I just like savored every minute of it and every mouthful. And it was just such a good experience. And I love drinking by myself. So our plan today is I'm going to first of all share with you 5 reasons that you probably don't trust yourself. And then we're going to look at how I actually overcame those 5 blocks to create this self-trust that I have now around sugar. And I actually trust myself around alcohol, but I also trust myself around sugar as well. And then I'm going to share with you like what my relationship with alcohol looks like with having that self-trust. And then we'll talk about how you can actually get to this magical place as well. So in terms of 5 reasons, so the first reason is that we don't trust ourselves around alcohol. And from now on, I'm going to say alcohol and rather than saying and or sugar. So if you're listening to this from as a sugar lover, just insert sugar whenever I say alcohol. So the first reason is like these things are highly addictive substances, right? So alcohol impacts our brain, changes our brain chemistry, and it feels really good when we drink. So of course, it's really challenging if you're wired in that way and you identify as a booze hound, you will know that it feels really good when we drink. So of course, it's hard to create that self-trust when we're dealing with a highly addictive substance. And I think having that self-compassion is really important. However, just because it is a highly addictive substance doesn't mean that it's impossible and that we're doomed to just, be in this like option of either like all or nothing, where we're either not drinking at all because we can't handle it, or we're overdoing it. Like there actually is a middle ground. And when I talk about how I found that middle ground, you'll see that the possibility that you too can become someone who drinks in a way that feels good to you. So that's reason number one. Second reason why we can't trust ourselves around alcohol is that we don't set intentions. So before we just start drinking and we don't ever think about how do we want that drinking session to go. And so of course, in the moment when we've got the alcohol in our brains and we're making decisions around whether we should have another drink or not, we haven't used the best part of our brain, the rational part. We're using the booze fueled part of our brain. And so it's like, it can't think about, oh yeah, tomorrow I've got work. I want to feel sharp for that. It's just thinking, this feels really good. Give me another, let's have another drink. Another drink's a great idea. And so yeah, not setting intentions, just going into it like without a plan creates us over drinking, and that leads to us feeling regret about our drinking. And obviously then there's that feeling of like we're not trusting ourselves. Third reason that you may not trust yourself is that you don't know how to coach yourself. So in those moments where you've had a couple of drinks and you're like, this feels really good, you're like, there'll be sneaky thoughts about, everyone else is having another one, or Or yeah, that's really good. I want more. And so you're just letting like whatever random thoughts come into your head play out. And then of course you're drinking more than you want to be drinking. So that inability, or that just not paying attention to the actual thoughts that you're thinking in those moments, that leads to over drinking, and that leads to the regret piece and that breach of self-trust. And then the fourth reason is like so much of our drinking is just habitual. Like, so we have habits that support us drinking in a certain way, and we don't question those habits. So that in itself, like, and we may have, that one of the habits may be that we just, drink more than we need and just don't pay any attention to how we're going to feel later on. And that results in us like continuing to have that breach of self-trust. And I think the other part of the habitual thing is that, yes, so much of our drinking is, this is what we have. When we go to this bar, this is what we order. And we don't like think about, and we don't explore alternatives. And the cool thing is that these days there are so many amazing alternatives. So we'll talk more about that in when we talk about solutions. But yeah, just the habitual component of drinking, that can be a huge driver. So it's an opportunity. And then the fifth reason why you don't trust yourself around alcohol is that you're not accountable to anyone for your drinking. So it's just you. And as we know, humans, if you're anything like me, sometimes you can be a little bit, keep yourself accountable, but oftentimes in the moment, particularly when there's, highly addictive substances, altering your brain chemistry, like those lofty intentions that we have in the moment, we don't, because there's no one else to answer to apart from us. We just blow off whatever, and we don't let ourselves keep ourselves accountable in those moments. And so of course that leads us to over drinking and the lack of self-trust. So many reasons, like, right. So of course, like, I think having some compassion for ourselves of like, of course that feels really, of course we overdrink. Of course it feels like we can't trust ourselves. And of course, one alternative is to just decide to not drink, right? However, and so many people do that. And if that's always an option, but I just propose to you that there's actually this alternate path that you can go down, where it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be that you're completely boozing or you're completely off. That actually it's possible to include alcohol in your life, have the fun bits, have those beautiful, moments where you're having a lovely glass of Riesling by the dam, that's super enjoyable, and then just stopping at one and not going into like, getting hammered by the time you have to go and pick up the kids from the school bus, because we like that would not be good. So the alternative is to actually overcome all those reasons why we don't trust ourselves, and instead use our alcohol, our drinking, as an opportunity to actually create self-trust and to actually strengthen our relationship with ourselves and our self-kindness. So let's go through the 5 ways I overcame the blocks. The first one is just deciding that I actually wanted to change, that yes, I loved wine and I loved alcohol and I wanted to still include it in my life. And also I was done with the shame and the over drinking and all the negative parts about it. So I decided that I was going to change, and I was willing to fail as many times as I took for me to change. And it took me probably about 3 years of doing this work to get there, but I got there eventually. So that was, but it came from that decision of like, no, enough is enough. I want to change this. Next, the second block, or the second way I overcame the block was, rather than not setting intentions and not having any plan when I was drinking, I was very diligent about setting intentions. So the rule I had with myself, and still do, is that before I start drinking, I decide how much I'm going to drink. And sometimes I might decide, I'm just going to drink whatever and it doesn't matter, right? But the thing is that when you make the decision from like a sober place before you start drinking, you're able to weigh up the consequences and you're able to decide like, yeah, okay, tomorrow it doesn't matter if I'm hungover, it's fine, it's going to be worth it. But or you might decide that actually tomorrow I don't want to feel hungover, I don't want to waste the day, and so therefore I'm going to set an intention to stop after 2 or stop after 3 or whatever it is. But by committing to setting intentions, it gives you that opportunity to make those decisions from the rational place. And that is very powerful. And I want you to think about like if you, because you might be thinking, oh, there's no way that I can do that. And I want you to think about when say you're driving and you're going out to dinner. If you drive, there will be, I'm sure there'll be times where you've decided, yes, I'm driving, I'm going to have one or two. And you would have stopped at one or two. Might have been a bit of an internal struggle, but you did it, and then you drove home. It was safe, and like so, we have evidence that you can set intentions already. It's just a matter of applying that to the days where you're not driving as well. So setting intentions so powerful. Then the third thing that I way that I overcame the blocks was learning to coach myself. And so it happened to coincide, like me changing my relationship with alcohol coincided with me learning about coaching tools and about our brains and how our brains work and how our thoughts create our emotions and they drive our actions. And so I got really clear on what were the like sneaky thoughts that would come up. And like sometimes I would give in to the sneaky thoughts and I wouldn't coach myself. But over those 3 years, I became more aware of them and I got better at coaching myself so that I was able to more and more stick to my intentions. Then the fourth way I overcame the blocks was actually finding good alternatives. There's so many amazing options out there, but when you have like a good alternative, so when you go to a bar and you have a good alternative that you can drink that you know is going to be satisfying, that's not alcoholic, or you might just, or at the end of like, say you might still have some wine, but then when you've had your 2 glasses, if you've got something that you can switch to that's going to be satisfying, then there's less sneaky thoughts and there's less internal struggle because it's like, oh, it's not like I have to completely stop having any drinking at all. Like I can just switch on to this non-alcohol option and ride the wave of the buzz that I've already got from whatever it is that I've already drunk. So I love one of the people in the secret society of intentional booze hounds she's really amazing cocktail crafter. And so she just put me onto this idea of having like sparkling water or soda water with a big splash of bitters in it. And yes, bitters do have a tiny bit of alcohol, but it's it feels like a drink, right? And so it's really satisfying. So if I'm ever at a bar and I want to stop drinking, I get that sparkling water with bitters. So having that good option, game changer. And then the final thing that helped me overcome these blocks is, you know, is that actually at the time I didn't have accountability, but if I was starting now, I would definitely get some sort of accountability partner, whether that would be someone else that I'm working with, just a friend or whatever. But I would definitely, actually, I would probably use the Secret Society, like my group, as my accountability partner. So I'm staying accountable to them. And that having that, just that little extra bit of like encouragement to stick to your plan because you want to be consistent with your group, so powerful. So the 5 ways I overcame these blocks. So let's just quickly talk about what it's like having an intentional, healthy relationship with alcohol where I trust myself and I feel really good about it. And so what it's like is so wild to me still that I've done this because I used to be wine was my life. Like I was a winemaker. So it wasn't just part of something that I did on the weekends. Like this was part of my identity as someone who loved wine, right? But these days I drink so much less and I enjoy it so much more. I drink probably in the course of a month, I drink almost what I used to drink in one day in the past. So yeah, like the quantity drastically reduced, but the quality of what I'm drinking and the enjoyment that I get from it is so much more. And I feel in control. Like it's not like alcohol is controlling me. I feel like, yep, I know what I'm doing. And of course, that isn't 100% true all of the time. There are still times. Earlier in the year, my Irishman and I were in Sydney, and I did have a night where I set an intention and then a couple of things happened and I ended up not sticking to the intention. But rather than using that as evidence that I was out of control, I just went, oh, okay, there's just something here for me to learn. And I was able to learn from that. And so I, will be able to do something better next time. But so there's this sense of self-trust, because even when like most of the time I do stick to my intentions, but on the times that I don't, I'm not going into the shame and guilt and blaming myself and being judgmental. I'm able to just see it as, okay, this is, of course, alcohol is a highly addictive substance, and just what can I learn from this? So I feel so proud of myself for having done that. And it actually feels very powerful to be like, to have gone from having a really rocky relationship with a substance to feeling that sense of control. It's fueled me for feeling like making other changes in my life as well. That feeling of self-pride. Another thing that I love about this, a little detail, is just whenever I go to the doctor now, and they ask you how much you drink, I can honestly say, and I don't have to do I used to be a winemaker, I'm probably drinking too much, and lie a bit about what I was drinking. So it just feels really good. And yeah, and that's what it's like. It's like I get the fun parts. I'm getting to drink as much as I want, whenever I want, and I don't get the downsides. So there's no messiness, there's no shame, and it's so good. So how do you get to this magical place? I know, like, you might be thinking, yeah, it's fine for you, Jules, but I've got, like, you don't know me. And I just want you to know that it's possible for you to do this too, that you are actually more powerful than you think. And it comes down to just making that decision that you're going to start on the journey to changing your relationship with alcohol. You're going to give yourself permission to change, and you're going to start experimenting with setting intentions before you start drinking. And I want you to think about, like, what is the possibility? Like, what would this open up for you if you were able to get your drinking into a place where you felt that balance, where you felt in control, and that there was that self-trust? Like, what other things would open up for you in your life if you were able to do this around booze? And before we go, just if you want to become one of those mythical unicorns who can take it or leave it around alcohol, then I'd love you to join me in my new group coaching program called the Secret Society of Intentional Booze Hounds, where we work together to build that self-trust around alcohol and becoming intentional and still loving booze and being booze hounds at the same time. So if that sounds good, click on the link in the show notes to learn more about the Secret Society. Okay, have a beautiful week, and I will catch you next week.